Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, the Wise Guy, and today is January 2nd, 2025. This morning, we are learning more details on the terrorist attacks that occurred yesterday, and we're gleaning more accurate information, while some politicians are more prepared to tell you their less than accurate positions on the subject. So if you enjoy news, history, or Americana in general, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Sit a spell. Take your shoes off. First, the most important thing to remember in these times. Uh, During the initial phases after the events, it's usually difficult to get a real read on all the details that could better portray a clearer picture. There's no way to actually determine the whole story here, and even in my video warning you all not to make assumptions or declarations, I also made some inaccurate points that I would like to clear up here. This is a fluid situation, although we are finding more out. Yesterday in my coverage on the stories, I mentioned something about the New Orleans suspect driving the truck, that he was apprehended. The truth there is that he was apprehended only by the rounds that were fired by the police officers, and he is actually deceased after having gotten into a shootout with the responding officers. You'll notice, however, that I went out of my way so as not to create a narrative to refrain from creating kind of misleading stories or even worse, misinformation. So, starting in Vegas and the new details there. Authorities have so far been fairly certain that they've identified the driver as the person who rented the Cybertruck that exploded in front of Trump Tower in Vegas. However, confirmation is yet to be made as the body of the driver was destroyed in such a fashion that it is unrecognizable. We will probably get more information there in the coming hours or days. What is interesting is that the renter of the truck is, like the person who rented the truck in New Orleans, they too seem to have a military history. In fact, a very robust American military background. He's apparently active duty at a Special Forces Command with almost 20 years of highly trained service in bomb detection, communications, intelligence operations, etc., and who is someone who is well versed in explosives. The person in the New Orleans attack, while also having a military background, seemed more personally motivated when reviewing his videos leading up to the events, where he talks about his life breaking down, his finances being in turmoil, and overall it appears as though he acted out on his own behalf and not with some kind of organized intent across the country. Even though both have military experience and they both use trucks that they both rented through the same app to carry out terrorist acts on the same days, and police are looking for a possible connection, it appears that at this time both are apparently unrelated. But again, that could very well change. This is a very, very fluid situation. Currently, many warrants are being carried out to determine more definitive information for the investigations. Now, if you want what makes me interested personally, while I'm making no hypothesis or assumptions, is that in New Orleans there seems to be other people involved that had planted other explosive devices around the New Orleans area, especially in the French Quarter. It just seems odd to me that a person who would make the long journey in a rented vehicle based upon issues in his personal life would have accomplices also working to plant devices around the area. From the initial reports, he seemed like a person who was upset and basically had enough when it comes to the problems of his life and chose to end it in a selfish and tragic fashion. Who these other people supposedly are and what they were doing and how they're involved is going to be really interesting to say the least. I am personally seeing some oddities there. And as far as the Vegas driver, his military history and training is, to me, one of the most shocking details of all of this. By every stretch of the term, this was a patriot who had put his ass on the line for his country in many different ways. The fact that he chose to rent a vehicle and it was found with full of explosives and allegedly carry out a terrorist attack on the property of an incoming president is, at least in my mind, more shocking than had this been a disgruntled citizen or radicalized religious terrorist. If you are to personally ask me, from my perspective, I would say that this got more complicated and not less. Regardless of these issues always turning out to be completely different set of circumstances than originally assumed when we see them, we have no shortage of politicians sharing their assessments from their massive platforms. I would say this is irresponsible, but that passed years ago. At this point, it's flat out negligent for anybody, especially those in our political leaders' hemispheres, to voice any narrative right now. That has not stopped the likes of Frankentoes herself, because not long after the attacks, Marjorie Trader Green began pinning this on immigrants. But then, as more information came out, she started posting tweets about how our government is funding Hamas and even called out Johnson and McConnell in a rant. Keep in mind, she was citing a report that detailed the humanitarian aid given to Palestinians in Gaza and not Hamas, while saying with utmost certainty that the attacks were organized and connected. She also went on about how the government funds the Taliban and, while citing, again, humanitarian aid for civilians in Afghanistan. Side note, lumping the civilian population in with terrorist organizations in a generalized fashion is a way to manipulate you into thinking that their ethnicity is somehow relevant to the actions of a separate group of people. Basically, because it allows for you to fear them. This is peak racism 101. She's playing a game that was played out every time someone wants to exploit your fears against you. Never, under any circumstances, retain any information from people like this because they benefit from the mistreatment of others. They're certainly no better than, we'll say, health insurance CEOs, if you ask me. But I digress. What I think was probably the most interesting post that she had made in this whole tragic set of events is this. The Las Vegas sheriff said that the Cybertruck's frame actually limited the blast, even protecting the Trump Hotel. I was impressed over the holidays when I tried out the full self-driving feature of a Cybertruck. It drove me to Starbucks and home flawlessly, but it's even more. Marjorie Trader Green, in fact, used this moment to sell the Tesla Cybertruck safety features and automated systems while sharing a sweet little anecdote about how one drove her to a Starbucks over the holidays. This woman is using a screenshot of a crime scene of a terrorist act to try and gain some kind of favor with the real president, Elon Musk. Folks, this is exactly what I was trying to make sure y'all didn't look like. That woman continues to get put into office, and I truly don't understand how or why. She represents the worst of our country, and Georgians just can't seem to find anybody better. I honestly don't know who that speaks the worst of, to be quite honest. I don't wish to share any more of the current presupposed accusations by the other overwhelmingly one-sided party members who are also trying to exploit these incidents for their own personal benefit. Because frankly, even though I don't have an admittedly large platform here, Marjorie Trader Green exemplifies them all just fine enough. And I don't think I feel like dignifying their behavior, as these immediate freakouts truly are unbecoming of a garbage truck driver, let alone members of our legislature. I don't know how anyone could have voted for any of the Republicans who are trying to manipulate their base with fear can have any shame at this point. These terrorists were Americans. They were military veterans. And they were the complete opposite of what everyone is trying desperately to make you fear through lies, manipulation, and exploitation. You deserve better. You deserve to be treated better. And you deserve to expect your representatives to tell you the truth and not persuade you against your better judgments. This constant excuse of, well, they're all shitty, it's got to stop. Because what it has done is it opened the door to people like Nanny McTrenchfoot over here to be the voice of Georgia's 14th district. The folks there looked at her, and the rest of us around the country see people there truly don't feel like there's anyone better in their community to better deliver the voice of their people, and it's fucking embarrassing. We need to police ourselves better, and we need to have more accountability. This is our house, and we got to keep it clean. And come 2026, start working to kick out the current tenants and put up a no solicitor sign. We cannot expect to get anything right when so many of our leaders consistently seem to keep getting it extraordinarily wrong. The only way that we can do that is if we all stay informed, stay engaged, and stay decent. Until next time, y'all come back now. You hear?